It's the state of the dungeon. It's a video that Rob does about his games. Yeah! Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I am Rob, and this is my State of the Dungeon address. This is for the game that took place on the 11th of May in the year 2022. The game 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. The campaign was the Red Star Rising, the Foulest of Spirits. We're heading to the tail end of this one, ladies and gentlemen. And this was the post-action wrap-up after the party had gotten done wiping out almost all of the Butcher clan in their farm. Leading up, finally, with the battle against their priestess, sort of, Lila Butcher, and the animated Steam still. And then finally a Moonshine Elemental. Yes, it was a very memorable fight. The party all has some marks after this one, mental or physical. And they had rescued the guardsman who had been captured and tortured by the Butchers, who just happens to be the cousin of Constable Rolfe, the law of the land around Nevermore. So Jonas is a nice addition to the group. He is scarred. He is messed up. He just got done watching one of his friends get thrown to feral hogs and devoured. He's seen his other friend tortured to death in front of him, and he's been hung up by his knees, having been tortured himself. So yeah, he's kind of messed up. But you know, the group is kind, and they have rescued him. He is in shock, but you know, he's dealing. He's, you know, to be a guard in Nevermore, you have to be pretty tough yourself. So Jonas is pretty solid. Proof of that is he went to the Butchers knowing there was a distinct chance he might not be coming back. He even left a note to that effect. So there's no doubt that Jonas is brave. There's no doubt that Jonas is tough. He survived this whole mess, so it's nice to get him back. So the party decides, well, what better way to celebrate than to loot before burning? So the pillaging took place. The party searched everything they could in the distillery, found all of Mother Sylvence's things that were stolen, as well as the other Hanataz relics. So that's good. They accomplished their primary mission. Then they decided they were going to go through all these places that they kind of didn't really throw a lot of care into. First of all, they checked the stables, which is right outside. They found that there were some giant rats in there. Nasty, yes. But the giant rats really weren't any threat to these brave Hanataz. They slaughtered them pretty quickly, as you know, now second level adventurers should. Not wasting many resources. Glyn went in and did his thing, did some archery stuff. Haranen went in, Ventov went in. And you might ask, well, what were the giant rats hurting? Well, there were some valuable wheels of cheese inside, and you know how the Hanataz are. If it's not nailed down, it's theirs. If it is nailed down, they probably have a crowbar. So they got 3 valuable wheels of cheese. And again, remember, the Hanataz use everything, so this cheese will be welcome additions to their stores, or the party can sell it, because, let's face it, adventurers got to eat too. And while the Hanataz will feed them, and so on and so forth, you know, they might not always be around the Hanataz, and they might have other things that they need to spend their money on, like healing potions and stuff. So they liberated the cheese for the Hanataz cause, we'll just say. They also went down and checked out the basement because, you know, never let something potentially valuable go. And they went down the stairs, and this fight was a little complicated because there was a staircase and then there was a shaft down to a ladder which opened into the cellar they had dug out. And they had broken the stairs, so there's a little climbing down, a little bunching up, and then there was the shaft and the ladder. Well, Ventov went down first, and there were a bunch of rabid raccoons. Apparently dinner for a future time for the Butchers. So all of a sudden he gets attacked. Now you might think to yourself, Ventov is a proud dwarf with nice armor and a magical axe. What kind of danger could he have against these raccoons? Well, in Gooey Cube, rabid raccoons are very nasty. Every bite of theirs did minimal damage, but they also did necrotic damage and forced a saving throw, or else you would get a nasty case of some sort of swamp fever. It would have been bad, let's just say. But hey, you know, you got a dwarf down there. So he's the toughest one of the lot against disease, and he did quite well. But, of course, he was in trouble because they're mobbing him, and there's a bunch of them, and eventually they're going to get through his armor. So Haran comes down to help out, and they find out that fighting in an enclosed space can be challenging, certainly. And Glyn is trying to shoot down from above, and actually succeeds. The fighting takes place directly under the shaft, so he does get a couple of clear shots and does end a couple of raccoons. So all told, the group does pretty well. It should be noted that the group was lacking Brandel and their spell dancer, so that's, you know, their magical firepower is gone. With, of course, the exception that of course, Crendon can do some magic as a bard, and of course they have, you know, magical fire flinging and some other abilities from Vanessa. So in that case, they're okay. But without Kenna and Brandel, you know, they're kind of hurting a little bit for firepower. Fortunately, raccoons. They beat the raccoons, no problem. There was some damage dealt out, but you know, the group has some restorative abilities by this point, especially since Vanessa has all of her magics back, and Crendon has his magics back, and they've had time to kind of collaborate and decide what spells they're going to have. I believe everybody's got some healing on them now. And also, it should not be forgotten that now Glyn can cast spells. He has had a communion with nature, and now he has some spellcasting ability. So if he has any kind of cure wounds, which is available to first level, second level rangers, they have even more healing, which is good. They'll probably need it at some point. It'll stop them from sucking down all those healing potions they've been going through like cheap soda at a daycare. The wrong kinds of daycare. Anyhow, as I was saying, they got through that. They finished off the raccoons and found that there was relatively little of any value down there. But they were thorough and they were satisfied. They ticked off all the boxes, went back, checked everything to make sure they didn't miss anything. The only thing that they discovered upon their second looks, they found a second secret door that they hadn't found the first time. That was it. They were thorough. And to celebrate, they lit that sucker up. Now, I understand it. It is a tradition from people who are playing through the Darkest Dream, going to the Foulest of Spirits. They end up getting a taste for pyromania. My group resonates with that because they really enjoyed setting the butcher farm on fire. They enjoyed burning down the outhouse, yes, because of Filthy Floyd and all that. Who? They noticed. His body's gone. Little Doofer's body's gone, and they never did find Wilbur again. Who knows? But as it turns out, the rest of the place burned nicely, and they enjoyed a nice 1 hour short rest, enjoying the bonfire and making sure that it all burned down, including all that awful, awful, awful butcher brew, the moonshine that was toxic to everybody except for certain vile people. So they burned it down. Good job. They enjoyed doing that. Then they went back down the mountain, going back over their sites of their various assaults. They went to try to free the two cousins who they had tied up. They had already been freed. Turns out, it's really hard to tie up backwoodsy people. They can be awfully slippery or have means of getting through. If that means chewing their way through rope, or maybe having a pocket knife secreted away somewhere that somebody's not likely to find it, that they might be able to wriggle to and get. Yeah, they might be able to do that. So the cousins got away. The only person that they actually found going back down, by the way, who they had previously encountered, was one of the corrupt guards, one of the shiners who was dressed up as a guard. Yeah, that guy was still there, so he's not going to enjoy this part. So, you know, they're bringing him back. With a little bit of extra violence to keep him sedated. But they did meet somebody else. They met Asa Oxbridge. I think that's his name, Oxbridge. But anyhow, he is a local who does not like well, he doesn't like the Shiners. Certainly he doesn't like the Shiners. But he really doesn't like the Butchers. So when they told him that they had taken him out, he was ecstatic. He was also in a lot of pain because his foot had been caught in a bear trap. Which is, if you've ever seen a bear trap, that's nothing anybody would want. But the party freed him. Even, he was ready to defend himself with his life. He had an axe. He was going to go up to the butchers to settle their issue with his axe, which would not have gone well for him. There were too many butchers, and quite frankly, he would not have been ready for Filthy Floyd, even at the very basic. He wasn't weak or anything. It's just against an entire family of crazed redneck cannibals. Not possible cannibals. They never got proof that they ate people. That's what they had the pigs for, right? But then if you eat the pigs, pigs have eaten people. Does that kind of? I don't know. Anyhow, so they freed him, talked nice to him. He, they offered to take him back to the road. He accepted. They even magically healed him. And remember, magical healing may not be something that your average person sees in their lifetime in Xayathay. They know it exists, but it's not very common. Now here's some complete strangers and Hanatas, the people that people mistrust. They did a little goodwill ambassadoring that day, healing him and allowing him to accompany them to more safe environments. That's how the Hanatas can win over some hearts and minds, and Asa certainly appreciated that. And I think he realizes that they're good people who are trying to do good. And hey, they just wiped out the butchers. That makes them good right there, doesn't it? Certainly does. So they eventually get back down to the road. And they're traveling along with Jonas and Asa and this unconscious guy. And they see a grim specter of a woman in the road in front of them. And she's beckoning. Seems to be beckoning primarily to Glynn, but yeah, beckoning to the group in general. And she points to the one side, and there's a path there that they don't remember seeing on the way. It's kind of grown over, but it's a clear path. And the party's like, what the heck? We've just been through all of that. I know it's Darktide night, but this is ridiculous. Because, yeah, they whine a lot. But realistically, yeah, this is pushing a group far beyond what they normally should. But bear in mind this, and I want you to remember this, they've had the equivalent of a full rest and level up just recently, so I don't feel bad about this at all. Their spellcasters had the power back. At one point in the night, they were at full health again, so... And remember, on short rests, the Bard has Song of Rest now, so they're all getting a trickle of healing every time they do a short rest, so it's not a big deal. Minor nicks and injuries aren't anything really to consider for me anymore. Now, for those of you who have played through the Foulest of Spirits, you might be going, wait a second, I don't remember that encounter. It may be that you didn't read quite through all the GM notes, because there's a little bit there that suggests, hey, at this point we wrote a side adventure called Darktide's Night. This would be a great place for it. It's written for this moment. If you want to use it, go ahead. If the party's too beat up, don't. Well, my party ain't beat up. They're second level, they've got their stuff, and I want to run this adventure, because I had a lot of fun with this at GameholeCon. They're going to play it, dang it. So, they did. And upon going to this specter, they're like, okay, we know when we're being led by the nose and don't have much choice, and this ghost isn't going to go away anytime soon. They didn't detect that it was evil or menacing, just a powerful apparition that can appear before all of them, that can make paths appear in front of them. There's some powerful magics. And of course, don't forget, there's that big bloody red star in the sky now, so this whole place has an aspect of something not good. And they're like, okay, we're going to go and investigate what's going on, which may be a surprise to Brandel and Kenna when they come back. Oh, we're in the middle of another haunted forest again. They'll be so happy. But Jonas, Asa, you are not part of our group. Maybe you can go by, if we honor the spirit's request, you can go by and you can get back to the Mangy Hound. We'll deal with what the ghost wants. They were so thrilled. And yeah, Asa and Jonas are like, yeah, that sounds a lot better than going through some haunted woods after what we've been through. So they're like, okay, sure, yeah, no, thank you for your sacrifice. We're gonna go. And they scooched around the ghost and walked on down the road. Not very fast, remember. Jonas is still in a bad way for all that they've done for him. And Asa's perfectly fine with being the heavyweight with his axe, so they'll manage, but at this point, the party is doing the more dangerous thing. They went down the path. So going down the path meant a couple of things. First of all, it went all around through the woods. It's wider than a game trail, but it's overgrown, but not to the point where there's trees and branches and stuff in their way that they have to chop through. It's just there's the grass is a bit higher, and the trees are kind of encroaching. So as they're going through, they get attacked by what are effectively a group of skeletons. They're the Wretched Walkers. Most of the lower class undead are walkers. The Wretched Walkers are more of your skeletons. The Woeful Walkers that they've come across... actually, these were the Woeful Walkers. The Wretched Walkers are just basically barely held together skeleton zombies. These are the Woeful Walkers. They're skeletal, but they have their inherent tragedy of what formed them, not done by a necromancer, but by powerful emotion and tragedy, that they are walking through this already necrotically infused forest. They have a psychic affinity that they can pass on to whoever they hit to deal psychic damage because of the levels of despair and emotion that they suffer. The group could have had a hard time with them, but for the most part, they kick butt. I mean, they're second level. Haranen is rolling amazingly well through the night. I don't think he missed. The rest of the group was, drawn on, some pretty impressive fireworks themselves. At this point, I think Ventov realizes that his armor class is already so high, he doesn't need to double down on that. So he uses his buckler of bashing, that's what I'm calling it now, and his axe, and just chop, 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 going through his enemies. It's really a sight to see when the group works together against a lesser foe, how quickly they can down everybody. Some of the group is still working through what their optimal stuff is, but it was nice to not have the wizards just cheese their way through it, or have a cleric who just throws up a holy symbol and banishes them. The group just got to get their hands dirty and take them down. They also discovered quite quickly that the skeleton-like opponents were resistant to piercing, which took the bows out of the equation to some extent, but when it came to getting up and chopping them down, they fell fairly quickly. And I gave them vulnerability to bludgeoning because I think it's a smart idea to attack skeletons with bludgeoning weapons, and they were shattering them left and right when they came down to it, which was cool. Even Vanessa got to go up and start smacking things with her Serric Iron Mace, so she was quite effective as well. It's a good weapon to use against those things. So following along, the twist, and of course these are skeletons, they didn't have much. I don't even think they bothered to search the bodies. Sometimes that happens. They continued on through the trails it wends and winds and wafts and woofs and goes up and down hills and eventually ends in a clearing, as you would expect. In the clearing is a single big dead tree, as you might expect. In the tree, though, is a series of shacks built up in its branches. Treehouse. Yeah, there's treehouse in there. They look janky as heck. The illustrated picture makes them look like this thing could come down in a moment. And I unfortunately do not have the color illustrations yet because it only recently came on sale at GUI-Cube, which is unfortunate because the actual pictures are so much creepier. But if you can see from this picture, that's what they were moving up into. So they get up to it. They, of course, they do the reconnoitering right away, looking it over, and it looks creepy as heck. What can you say? No ladders coming down from the outside to go to either of the shacks that they can see, but there is a door set into the trunk of the tree. So they move up to it. They see that there is a door. It's barely wedged into the hole in the side of the tree. And carved into it, which seemed to be glowing now in orange light, are the words, "Only Flesh." Yeah, creepy stuff. Also, there's a sinister-looking teddy bear lying next to the door. This little darling. Its eyes seem to glow no matter what, even if there's no real light that is there to catch it. But they're just button eyes. Really, there's nothing sinister about this bear at all. Maybe. But the group finds the bear. They find the stuff. And they're like, okay, well, that's ominous. They see that the tree is dead, but it appears to be hollowed out. There are actual windows in the body of the tree, and candlelight is now glowing from them now that they've approached the tree. There's also candlelight coming from the two shacks on top. That's not creepy at all. No, not at all. So, the group gets together and they convene on this little riddle. First of all, they look at the bear. Eventually, Crendon picks it up, and he finds out that it's heavier than the teddy bear like this would appear to be. It also has a hole in the middle of its back, like a puppet you would put your hand into. Yeah, nobody was willing to do that. Instead, Crendon pulls out his knife and he kind of gives it an appendectomy from the backside, if you know what I'm talking about. And inside is a pouch that falls out and some sheets of vellum. Now, if you don't know what vellum is actually an early version of paper that was actually created from leather, often lambskin. The texture and color of this, though, seem to match Glenn's skin color more than anything else. So maybe not lamb? We don't know. But it's creepy enough. It's Darktide's night. There's nothing that's going to be completely normal about this, right? Right. So, opening up the pouch, it's full of gems. Nice little sparkly, very valuable gems. 12 plats worth of coinage, which to them is a precious sum. This can really help. There's some, there's different things that they need. This could buy a lot of several healing potions or whatever, but all told, 12 plats, about 120 gold. It's good haul for not much work. But Crendon's like, wait a second. Wait a second. No. Only flesh. The vellum is made out of flesh. We'll take that. I'm going to take the gems. I'm going to stuff them back up into the bear and put the bear back. And then we can go in. Smart move. So they open the door. They look inside. Inside is most of the center of the trunk is hollowed. And it forms a nice little room. There's a table in one side of the room, a low table, with several bottles, 7 of them, full of red liquid. Written in what appears to be blood on the table is only blood. And there's a ladder leading up to what looks like the first larger shack, to the inside of the body of that shack. So as the group sizes this up a little bit, all of a sudden some phantasmal apparitions come into the room. Heads. 3 floating glowy heads that open their mouths and spit curses in unknown languages and actually deliver elemental effects and attack the group. Well, the group finds out again. Several of them have big slashy weapons. Long swords need a certain amount of room to move around. Axes take room to swing and get some room. So the more people that pack themselves in, now they start finding themselves fighting at disadvantage because their areas are compressed and they have to try to make sure they don't hit their comrades. So it's kind of a mess, but the party is quite potent. At this point, they have the means, various abilities in their own ways. Like, Ventov has a magical axe, which works super effective against these things. Haranen himself manages to land some amazingly powerfully damaging blows. Even if he doesn't do full damage, it's more than enough to dampen the spirits of these spirits. Some of the group decides they're going to stay back and try to help out. Crendon a little bit realizes it's too packed in there, so he stays back and he's giving off Bardic Advantage, which is a huge swing in the right time to the right place. And the ghosts manage to only deliver a couple of telling blows, a couple of magic missiles that strike out, and a burning hands, which affects most of the people who are inside. Also, when these things die, there's a 50-50 chance that they can give off an energy wave which partially heals the party, or a shock wave which damages the party. And it hits everybody, even if they're not inside the house. Guess which I rolled more often? Yeah, they got the Healy. So that actually, I don't think anybody is hurt at the end of that fight. It was kind of disappointing. I would have reworked that a little bit better, and after I thought about it, I probably should have changed a few things. But it's okay. The group had a bit of fun with this little haunted treehouse scenario. Crendon's like, okay, well, we got through that, so he went outside and he got the gems, and he came back inside, thinking, I have solved it. And then he started to itch. It turns out that when you take the gems and bring them into the treehouse, they turn into little bugs, which attack with elemental power. So now he's getting rocked by these bugs attacking him. The group pulls up his sleeves and they just see that he's covered with these gem-colored beetles. And that his pouch is empty. Yeah, he runs outside to start swatting them off and taking off his clothes and finds out that once he goes out the door, whew, they all turn to ash. Gone. The gems, as well as the bitey things that were attacking him. So he's beat up a little bit, but in general, he's weathered it okay. Which is good. So then the group goes in and they look at the stairs going up. And that's where we left off. So the group has decided one thing, though. They have investigated the bottles, and they found out that 3 of them actually do have blood in them. 4 of them do not. They have some sort of a reddish liquid, but it looks more like a potion or a concoction of some sort, more so than blood. So they decide they're taking the blood. Seems to make sense with the puzzle. And that's where we left off. So, when we get back, hopefully I will have the print version of The Darkest Dream so I can have color handouts, which would be nice. But it's a fun little side adventure, not as necessarily devastating as some. They're getting to use their brains a bit and working together, which is really nice to see. It's also nice to see that they don't have the 2 people who just roll magic puzzle-beating win buttons and really smart wizards and spell dancers. So they're thinking their way through, and it's coming along pretty well. So that's the story so far. Thank you for joining me. I'm Rom. This has been my State of the Dungeon address. Stay tuned. There will be more excitement and adventure. And if you like hearing these blow-by-blow, play-by-plays, well, it's not a blow-by-blow because that's too much detail. But if you like these little stories about our adventures, stick with us. And if you are new to the series, there's plenty behind us so that you can go back to the beginnings of some of these adventures and carry on through. Thank you for joining me today. I will see you sometime soon, I trust. Thank you and farewell.